Hey guys, welcome to KristenKellyTV. So today I'm going to be talking about a pretty serious story. If you have any triggers when it's like to do with rape or something on those lines, this is probably not a story time that you should watch. However, if this is something that you do want to watch, please continue. All right, so first of all, let's get into the location. When I was 21 years old, I lived in Los Angeles. I still live in Los Angeles. I lived near like Miracle Mile. I would go out a lot. I had a lot of friends that would go out. I had a particular group of friends who were much older than I was. They were in their early 30s and I was 21. So, you know, they were a lot more mature, or at least I kind of thought they were more mature. They were pretty awesome. You know, I like really loved that group of girls. And one night it was my friend's friend, no, it was my friend's roommate or my friend's friend's birthday. And I think that she turned like 34 or something, or 35. And I had just turned 21. And the bar was actually walking distance from where I lived, which was really kind of interesting because I lived in Miracle Mile, which now I guess kind of has bars, but at the time really didn't have any bars. So if I was going to go out, I was, going to Hollywood. I wasn't normally walking somewhere. And my friend even was like, oh, it's across the, because I was like, oh, I'm getting a cab now. And she's like, you live across the street. And I'm like, oh, really? So I walked to this place, which was across the street. And I was wearing like a very tight mini skirt, very big heels. And I met up with my group of friends, actually kind of weird. You know that show House? The guy that is in that show, or was on that show, who had blonde hair, blue eyes. He was Australian in real life. I don't know if he like had an accent on the show, but he was there. And my friends and I were like so drunk that we had like surrounded him and his girlfriend or friend, and we love House, and you're from Australia. And like I was like, funny thing, I have a friend and his name is an Australian name. Like we were just so stupid. But that was actually really embarrassing. And if you guys want me to do stories of how I embarrass myself in front of famous people, that is like actually one of them, because I was so drunk and my friend was so drunk and my friend was like falling on top of him. So we're at the birthday party, and my friends like could drink. I mean, these girls were like veteran drinkers, they'd been drinking for a decade. So everybody's taking shots and they're drinking and they're crazy. And my friend's roommate was actually like very successful at a really successful job. She was like really put together, like not like a sloppy girl ever. And this particular night, she was just so wasted. She took her shoes off at one point and left them. I was in the bathroom and she like literally took off her underwear and just like left it on the doorknob in the bathroom of the bar. Like she was just like on another level of intoxicated, of craziness. So we're at this bar, and these like guys are talking to us, as like normally happens in bars. And this guy was like, wow, you're so beautiful. And he kept just talking to me the whole night. He kept like talking about my hips for some reason. He was like, oh, your hips, they look so good in that skirt. Like I don't know what, like it was just weird to me how he kept talking. Okay, it's weird to me now, in hindsight, how he kept talking about my hips. But at the time I was like, oh, thank you, I have hips. I don't know. I was, stupid like 21-year-old stuff. So, he was so sweet. He was really nice. He was really sweet. He told me he was a lawyer. He also told me that he like helped promote bars sometimes for some of his friends, which is really weird. Like, why would you be like a bar promoter or club promoter and also be a lawyer? That's just very strange. But he was like he was young. So I thought like, early 30s. So I thought maybe he was like, just did that for his friend, like he said. I don't know. But dressed really nicely, was super sweet, was really nice to my friends. Like my one friend that was literally falling all over that actor, he was helping with her, and he was just a really nice guy. Like, I mean, just everything about him was super nice. So at one point, I wanted did I just want to go? I feel like, okay, so all of my friends were still there, and I kind of like wanted to just Irish exit. So I actually started to leave, and I was walking home. I think I was just like really hungry. I may have had like to go to college the next day. I think I had class or something. So I started leaving, and he kind of followed me, and he was like, oh, like, where are you going? And I was like, oh, you know, like, I'm going to go home. I got class, or I was hungry or something. And he was like, oh, well, like, let me walk you home. It's not safe for you to, you know, be walking outside by yourself. And I was like, no, that's like totally okay. And he's like, no, like seriously, like, you know, I don't want you to get, you know, like hurt or anything. And I was like, well, I literally live across the street. And he was like, no, like, let me walk you. So I was like, okay, fine. So he walked me, and the whole time he was so nice. He was just talking about, you know, how we should hang out sometime, and how like all my friends were so fun, and I have such like a good group of friends, and how beautiful we all were, and like it's so nice to see like beautiful girls that were friends, and just really, you know, nice stuff like that we were, you know, we just had like a conversation. So it also, I think, maybe talked about my hips a few more times. So we get back to my house, we get back to my apartment building, and my apartment building had 2 outdoor doors and then an elevator. There was no like security, you know, man or anything. It was just like 2 doors, go inside, elevator, up to the apartment. So, and I should say, I lived alone. I did not have any roommates at this point. The only one that I had was Yuki, and Yuki was probably like, you know, she was under a year old at this point. Yuki's my dog. So, and she's like a very small Maltese, you know, so it's not like she's like any protection is what I'm like bringing to the story. So I was like, oh, well, thank you, you know, so much for walking me home. So I start going inside, and he kind of stops me before I reach the first door, because there's one door, open it, and then there's another door, open it, and they're both locked. So he kind of stops me, and he's like, oh, you know, do you think maybe I could come up? And I was like, no, I'm sorry, like, I gotta go to sleep. And he was like, no, like, you know, maybe I could just like hang out for a little bit. We could have like a cocktail or something. And I was like, no, like, I'm not gonna drink anymore. You know, I gotta get like up early. You know, I was just coming out for this birthday party. And at this point, he really became not like overly aggressive, but he was becoming more aggressive. He was like, oh, how about we just like watch a movie? We don't have to drink. And I was like, no, I gotta go to sleep. He's like, well, how about I just wash my hands? And can I just wash my hands? And I was like, no, I'm sorry, you can't come up to wash your hands. And at this point, really, my brain started kicking in of like, this guy is really trying to come upstairs with you, and you're in a skirt, you're in a skirt, high heels, outside by yourself. I don't know what time it was. It was probably like 2 a.m. Maybe it was probably before that. Maybe it was like 1 or something. And I just was like, no, I'm sorry, you can't come up. And I turn around, and he grabs my arm like super aggressively. And at that point, I just, you know, normally I would have been like, and pushed him, and then turned around, maybe like gunned it for the door, like slapped, like, you know, slammed the door. But it was just something about, it was almost like my guardian angel. It was almost like someone just like took their hands and went like this on my shoulders, kind of like, relax. So I just really relaxingly looked at him, and I said, I think you're really hot. And he's like, just let me use the bathroom. Please, I just want to use the bathroom. I really have to use the bathroom. And like those, you know, just my guardian angel's hands just relaxed me. And I said, super hot. And I'm really into you, but I have to be honest with you. I'm married, and my husband's upstairs. So there is literally no way you can come upstairs. And the second I said that, I said it so calmly and so convincingly that the guy like really believed me. And he was like, I knew it. You're too beautiful not to be married. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I'm really sorry. I wasn't trying to lead you on or anything. And he was like, no, it's cool. And I was like, yeah, but like, let me get your number. And he's like, no, that's okay. And he turns around and he leaves. Note that if I got his number, I was not going to call this guy. I was just doing that like to diffuse the situation. So I get upstairs, I'm like, Jesus, like it was just, I was like, God, that was, really like missed a bullet there. But at the same time, I wasn't thinking like, oh, if this guy got upstairs with me, he was gonna rape me. I kind of felt like that. I kind of was like so skeeved out by the fact that he was like trying to force himself upstairs. I felt like he was very aggressive the way he grabbed my hand. But I, benefit of the doubt, I was just kind of like, I don't know, he probably just wanted to like sleep with me. He probably wasn't trying to like rape and kill me. But I was like, wanted no part of that. So I go upstairs, and normally I walk Yuki like as soon as I get home. However, I didn't. Like I remember like putting her on the wee pad in the bathroom because I was just like, I just did not want to even chance going outside and seeing that guy again. So the next day, I call my friend and I'm like, hey, just want to make sure, like you guys got home okay. Like, sorry, I kind of just left. Everybody was taking a lot of shots. I just like really needed to get home. And she was like, yeah, everybody's cool. Have you seen, and mentions her roommate? And I was like, no, I haven't seen her at all. Like the last time I saw, you guys were all together at the bar. So she's like, oh, okay. So the following day goes by and, don't hear anything from anybody. The next day goes by and I get a call from our mutual friend, like that was actually at that party. It was the friend who was like falling over drunk, who was like all over the actor and stuff. So it was her. And she's like, hey, did you hear what happened? And I was like, no, like what happened? So my friend, who her roommate was there, I guess was just at that bar. I told you she was like super clumsy that night. At one point she took off her underwear. She was just like really, like I have never seen her turned up that way. So I guess that guy went back to the bar and started talking to her. And she was like, talking to him, everything was cool. They went back. So my friend and like her roommate, that girl, with the guy, I guess. Okay, wait. So my friend, the one who was her roommate, did not see her leave with that guy. Her roommate just left and she like was barefoot, she left her shoes, but left with that guy. So they went back to their apartment and my friend shared, an apartment with her, they were roommates. The guy ended up raping her roommate and torturing her pretty much. Like he bound her, he beat her, like really beat her and raped her repeatedly for I don't know how long. We don't even know the details of it because she was so traumatized by what happened. So like raped her, beat her for a number of hours, we're not really sure. But her roommate, because they're like, mid 30s, early 30s, like they were not in each other's business, like you would be in like your early 20s. You're not like knocking on each other's door every day, So they would see each other, but they weren't like seeing each other every single day. And her job was she had really long hours. So when my friend had called me and asked me if I knew where her roommate was literally in the next room. Her roommate was in her room, but was so traumatized by this experience that she was like in a corner. So he raped and tortured her. And then he left and she was so scared and so like mentally just fucked up by what happened. She was like under, I don't know if she was under a chair or if she was under her desk or if she was under the bed. She was like under a piece of furniture. So my friend, had like kind of just like opened the door, looked in, said her name, didn't see her, was like, where is she? Her car is here. And then her work called and her roommate, my friend was like, we got to find her, blah, blah, blah. Ended up, really like going through her room, like looking for her, like looking for like, a piece of paper with maybe like a schedule or something and found her. And it was just a nightmare. Like the whole situation was so horrible. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you like just how crazy everything was. The fact that could have been me, that guy, like was so close to trying to get upstairs. And it was definitely the same guy because like I had to go in and talk to the police and she talked to the police and just his description was the same. His build was the same. Like what he was wearing was the same. Everything was the same. It was the same guy. And I didn't know his name because I think he'd like introduced himself, but probably wasn't even his real name, but I didn't remember. And when I'd asked, for his like, information later. He didn't give it to me. She did not remember his name. She was so out of it, and there was a tiny little bit of security footage of them going into her apartment, building. So they had a little, some grainy footage of what he looked like, but it was just, it was crazy. And then they never found the guy. So they discovered that he was a serial rapist because when, she had to go in and I had to go in and all of our other friends went in and we talked and we looked through these books, we saw other pictures of him and it was the same MO. However, he was never caught, and he'd used a condom, so there wasn't really any physical evidence evidence. It's horrible. And it's so scary. I mean, just the fact that this guy, and that was his thing, he'd go to bars, he'd find girls, he'd talk to them, he'd be nice the whole time. He would, separate them from their friends, or he'd see one that's being separated or leaving their friends, aka me, and then, or someone who was really intoxicated, like she was. And there's just bad people out there, and this guy was never caught. Serial rapist. I don't even remember how many people he raped, but it was very eye-opening for me. Yeah. And she was really never the same again either. My friend's roommate, she ended up moving. She had a really wonderful job. She gave her job up. She wasn't able to continue. It really had a lot of bad effects on her. She had a lot of post-traumatic stress from it. I mean, when I say he raped and beat her, he beat her. Her eyes were shut from him beating her. He broke her nose in 2 places. He broke her jaw. She had missing teeth. I think that he cracked 2 ribs. It was just horrendous. The whole thing was so crazy. And, she was so traumatized by it. She literally was just so scared that she couldn't even move from that fetal position, hiding. And at one point, we'd, talked, you can't even imagine, I can't imagine what happened to somebody in that situation, but she was so affected by it that she said that she didn't even realize where she was. When my friend, her roommate, had come in the room, she was so in a state of panic and craziness that she didn't recognize her and she couldn't even really see. And then on top of that, she thought that she was being held captive in his basement or something. She didn't know where she was, which it's just, psychologically things like this really play such a huge part on people's psyche. My advice for anybody who is a woman who is going out in a group of friends or is going out by herself, always be alert of where you are, carry pepper spray, be very cautious of who you let walk you to your door, be very cautious of who you let know your information, such as your address. Be very careful, always keep an eye out for you and your friends. And if you have sons, teach them not to rape. Teach your sons about respecting women and about why something like this is not right and can never happen. And it happens all too much in our society. If you or someone you know has been affected by date rape or is having any kind of problems in that realm, I'm going to put a few links below. Please click on those. And if you need help, please call 911, talk to a schoolmate, talk to a teacher, talk to a friend, talk to a parent, talk to someone, because there are people that are wanting to help you. Okay, thank you guys so much. I'll talk to you later. Bye.